Hello and welcome back to another episode of Diablo to D&D. My name is David, and today we're going to be going over the creation of Civerb's Vestments, Sigon's Complete Steel, and the Cleglaw's Brace set items. So we're back to making set items this week, and we're going to be starting off with Civerb's Vestments. I don't know if it's Civerb's or Kyverb's. It's Brevik's name backwards. He was one of the developers on Diablo, so it's a CI, so I just say Civerb. This one is not all that interesting, truth be told. Civerb's Cudgel has some max damage, two different types of max damage, bonus to undead because it is a mace class weapon, has a little bit of attack rating, and that translates very easily into just being a +1 weapon. It's technically worse than any other +1 weapon out there, which is just, doesn't require attunement. But it is a set item, so if you can get your hands on 2 or more of them, it's pretty good. Civerb's Icon is an amulet. This has a bit of replenished life and a bunch of regenerate mana, and then it has some cold resist and defense as you add more set items onto it. This one became a very interesting bit of kit. Once per day, when you cast a spell using a spell slot of first or second level, you may make a DC 15 ability check using the ability used to expend the spell slot. On a success, you regain a spell slot of that level. If you are attuned to 2 or more unique items from the Civerb's Vestments set, the DC is decreased by 1 for each other unique item you are attuned to from that set. So this one is a bit interesting. 40% mana regeneration is a huge chunk of regeneration. That is massive for a single item slot. But it is an uncommon item, so it would be, a fairly low-level restoration of spell slots. So since I don't really see you using this past, 6th or 7th level, actually, you know what? This would be really, really good for paladins. This is ridiculously good for paladins. Now that I think about that, you grab the Cudgel, it's just a +1 weapon, and then your first and second spell slots are going to be carrying you for quite some time. Yeah, because rangers wouldn't really want the Cudgel because they tend to do dexterity-based stuff rather than strength, although there is a strength-based ranger in the campaign that I'm playing. But paladins might actually get some pretty good use out of this. Well, anyway, I originally had this as first through third level, but then I cut it down because I didn't expect you to be using it for too terribly long. And then I thought about making it a DC of like 8 or 10 plus the level of the spell, which is what some previous editions had done. Or there might be some other magic items that I'm trying to think of. I can't remember. Where you make a check and then you restore something. But I decided to just cut it down to a DC 15 while giving you the ability to restore that spell slot based on the ability that you used. The internal set bonus of reducing the DC, it just comes from the fact that there is a huge amount of regenerate mana on this item. So that it's kind of, as you get more, it gets easier. In fact, the Civerb's Ward, which is what I'm going to transition into now, has additional mana if you have the icon. So there is some benefit to, or some, not precursor, what's the word? Anyway, it's there, and so that kind of fits. Civerb's Ward is just a basic shield that has a little bit of defense, a little bit increased block, and then it adds some mana if you have the icon, or some poison resist if you have the Cudgel. This wasn't terribly interesting, so I just made it a +1 shield as an uncommon item. And that's pretty much it. That's the set. Those are the set items. The set bonuses, however, take a slightly different direction. The partial set completion grants some fire resist, and on top of the cold resist from the icon and the poison resist from the ward, as well as the lightning resist from the full set completion, I just made the 2+ item set bonus. Whenever you take cold, fire, lightning, or poison damage, you can reduce that damage by 1d4. Very simple stuff. For having all 3 items, your weapon attacks deal an additional 1d8 damage to the undead. I decided to throw that in there because that's what it kind of does. It has 200% additional damage to undead. It does give you some decent amount of strength and attack rating. Oh, that is a percentage-based attack rating bonus. That's really good. But I decided, I'm just going to throw this in. It's really a paladin set. They're the ones most likely to be fighting the undead. And the poor necromancers in the back just hiding from the from the holy warriors. But that's pretty much it. Very simple set. Not much to really talk about. But I think overall pretty good. Let's move on to Sigon's Complete Steel. This one is an excellent early game set. It is massive. It has 6 different items, and you can mix and match as you choose to get some pretty good stuff. The shield is fantastic no matter what class you are, giving you a +1 to skills. Although the whole set is directly geared towards melee characters, throwing on 1 or 2 items, even as a caster, can give you some pretty good benefits. So before I get too terribly deep into the weeds on this set, I have to admit something. I was kind of running out of ideas. I knew I dreaded making this set because it was so big and there's not a lot to really work with. It's got your kind of basic early game stuff, a little bit of resistance, a little bit of attack rating, a little bit of stats, some bonuses to magic find, and some other things. But there's not really much to work with. So I took things in a bit of a different direction. And you'll see what I mean when I talk about Sigon's Gauge. This one adds a little bit of attack rating, a little bit of strength, and some increased attack speed. So very much an offensive item. This could be good for a boson. It could be good for a paladin, a smiter paladin, for example. But when you make it a D&D item, it just doesn't quite work. So what I've done with the entire set is give you a once per day ability. And some of them are useful, some of them are more niche, but all of them can be used by someone who's, wanting to use them. Sigon's Gauge, given that it is a combat-based and generally melee-based item, I decided to give you advantage on a strength, acrobatics, or athletics check when attempting to grapple or shove a creature once per day. This is a common item, so it's going to be a lot weaker than most of your other items. And grappling or shoving is not something that you really want to do very often. So having it just once per day is not terrible. So that's the Gauge. Let's move on to Sigon's Guard. Sigon's Guard is a fantastic shield. It gives +1 to all skills and a bit of a chance to block. This one is phenomenal even for casters. I mean, well, especially for casters, because Spirit takes 156 strength, and this one gives you half the number of skills that Spirit does, but has just less than half the strength, a little bit of dexterity, but you're going for some block anyway. However, Sigon's Guard in D&D is a little different. Once per day is a reaction. When you become the target of an attack, you may give the attacking creature disadvantage on the attack roll. this is kind of that extra chance to block. But once again, this is a once per day ability. It is an uncommon item because giving disadvantage on an attack roll is actually pretty good, even if it is just once per day. Think of it kind of like the protection fighting style for yourself, only it's once per day. Sigon's Sabot, I'm not entirely sure. It looks French. Until further notice, I'm calling it a Sabot. Sigon's Sabot is your typical early game boots. Faster run walk, some resistance. The set bonuses are for attack rating and some magic find, which is actually pretty good. So given that this one has a little bit of faster movement, I allowed you to, once per day, take the dash action as a bonus action. This is not really combat related, so I dropped it from an uncommon down to a common item. Just you have some shoes that can make you go a little bit faster once per day. But hey, I've seen somebody who's just like, I need to get out of here as fast as I possibly can, or I need to catch up to someone as fast as I possibly can. So even just once per day, taking the dash action as a bonus action is really, really good. Sigon's Shelter is up next with some enhanced defense, some lightning resistance, and a retaliatory attacker takes damage. This is actually a pretty high number. That attacker takes damage of 20 is really, really high for this early level. That is enough to kill some early game enemies. Now, Thorns in Diablo is stymied at every turn, because it's based on the creature's attack speed, or like it doesn't. The more often you get hit, the more often they take the damage, and there is attack delays and whole bunches of other things. So Thorns in Diablo is not really that good, but in D&D, this one actually could be pretty decent. Once per day, when you are hit with a weapon attack, you may have the attacker take 1d6 piercing damage. There's no save there. That is just a flat one. Well, flat, it's a d6, but it is an automatic d6 piercing damage. It is, again, once per day, but that could be enough. You know, a goblin or a fallen, well, fallen have 7 hit points, but, you know, an injured creature comes running up to you and hits you with an attack, you potentially could kill them, or at least get them low enough that your next attack could kill them. So it's not nothing. Though granted, this is plate armor. Sigon's Shelter is plate armor. You are not getting plate armor in the early games. You're not. You're just not. I mean, you're getting this at probably 9th or 10th level, when you finally built up enough gold. I mean, granted, I'm just guessing here because I never saw over 1,000 gold until I was level 13, 14. But anyway, my history with gold is complicated. Anyway, because it is a plate armor, you're not going to be seeing it, at levels 3 or 4 or 5. So it's really bad for that reason. Though, if you pick it up as one of your later items, you get those set bonuses on top of what you already have. This could become very good, but I'll get into that in a little bit. Sigon's Visor is up next. It offers some defense, some mana, and a bunch of attack rating, of additional attack rating based on your character level. This one, I went in a very different direction. Helm's giving attack rating is not really something that helms do. So instead, I went in on that plus to mana. And what I made was once per day, as is usual for this, when you use the ability of another Sigon's Complete Steel set item, you may restore a use of that ability. Sigon's Visor allows you another use of one of your other items, which is really, really good, because if you want any of the other items to be useful, you can beg your DM to get you those 2 items, and suddenly Sigon's Visor gives you essentially 2 charges of that item. It's really, really good. It's absolutely worthless by itself, but it is pretty good with the other items. Because of that, because it is not really a combat item, I made it a common item, in part because I wanted more common items. So, lastly, we have Sigon's Wrap, which is a belt. A bit of fire resistance, bit of life, and a bit to your defense for that +2, or that 2 set item bonus. Now, this one I originally had as a +5 to your hit points. But then I thought about the rest of the set and how I designed it, and I figured I'm going to go back and rework this. And so now it is a once per day as an action, you can regain 1d4 hit points. This is a little bit of recovery, just a little bit of recovery. Could be, when you are about to die or you're out of healing potions or something like that. Or it could be that you just took a couple scratches and you want to top yourself off. Either way, it's still pretty good. 1d4 is about as low as you can get. Healing Word is a bonus action and heals just a little bit more because it adds your ability score modifier to the healing. So I figured 1d4 hit points, it's once per day, that should be fine for an uncommon item. Now, let's pack these all in and look at the set bonuses. In Diablo, those partial set completions, they give you some life stolen per hit and some defense, both of which are really, 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 really good for that early game stuff. For this full set completion, you get some mana, fire resist, a bunch of max fire damage, and bumps that attacker takes damage up to 12 additional. So a total of 33, I think, if that is additive with the Sigon's Shelter. And it has damage reduced by 7, which is fantastic. I mean, at this point, you're running around with maybe a couple hundred hit points, and having damage reduced by 7 is phenomenal, especially since you're running around probably Act 1, and there's a bunch of mass monsters, your gore crows, not gore crows, that's different. No, is it carrion crows? I can't remember, the big flappy things that come out of those weird tree-looking things, nests. But you also have the Fallen, a couple zombies that are going to be massing onto you. So in D&D, those set bonuses add up to be, hopefully, pretty darn good. When you have 2 or more items, you get a +1 bonus to your armor class. This is probably worth it. If I had to pick 2 to start with, I'd probably get the Sigon's Visor and the Sigon's Wrap, just because restoring 2d4 hit points and then having that +1 bonus to AC that picks up, or that uses only 2 slots that are rarely used, is pretty darn good. For your 3+ items, whenever you roll a 20 on a d20 for a weapon attack roll, you may regain hit points equal to 1 roll of your weapon's damage die. So you are encouraged to wield bigger weapons because you are getting hit points based off of that weapon's damage die. Now, to note, Sigon's does not have a weapon, so you can put in whatever you'd like. And in fact, if you don't have the Sigon's Guard, then you could be wielding a 2-handed weapon, and those are D10s or D12s depending on the weapon that you have, or 2D6. For the 4+ items, once per day when you roll a 1 on the D20 for weapon attack roll, you may re-roll the die and you must use the new roll. So these two, the 3+ items and the 4+ items, those are your life stolen per hit, of course, as well as adding in some of that attack rating that came from some of the other items in the set. Now, both of those are really good. So let's add some more to it. 5+ items, you can use the 3+ and 4+ items set bonuses and additional time per day. Now, all of these are highly situational, but re-rolling 2 natural ones is phenomenal for an early game. Now, granted, you're getting this, 5 items, so this is probably mid-game, but by that time, getting all of these items, it's probably worth it to hold on to them. Though, granted, you're giving up 2 attunement slots, which could cause some problems. And then lastly, for that 6 item set bonus, you can use each item's ability an additional time per day. This bumps all of these to twice per day, which means if you use the Sigon's visor, you can use that ability twice per day, which means you can use, hypothetically, 1 item 4 times a day, because you have the once per day from the item, the second time per day from the 6 item set bonus, and then you have the Sigon's visor to restore 1 charge 2 times. So I actually really like this set. I wasn't keen going into it, but I think I've talked myself into it actually being pretty decent. I like the feel of it. It's not something that I use often in Diablo. I'll use them for like a couple levels and then toss them for better items. But this in D&D is something I could see myself using up to 14th or even 15th level on a melee character. In part because Sigon's Shelter is plate mail, which is really, really good. Anyway, let's move on to that third set, Cleglaw's Brace. Cleglaw's Brace is another 3 item set. And this one is pretty basic as well. For the Cleglaw's Claw, which is a shield, it cuts your poison length by 75%, which is phenomenal, as well as adding a little bit of defense and some all resistance for that 2 item set bonus. This one translated to a slightly different idea. I originally had Cleglaw's Claw giving resistance to poison, but I figured that might be too powerful, and some of the other items have also given resistance to poison. So instead, I decided to give this one immunity to the poisoned condition. This also ties in with the rest of the set, because poison gives you disadvantage on weapon attack rolls, and this one is very offensive-based set. This is an uncommon item, just throwing that out there. For Cleglaw's Pincers, this one has some interesting uses. This slows target by 25% and some knockback, as well as a massive chunk of attack rating for that set bonus. However, I just cut it down to a knockback ability. It's an uncommon item, so knockback, it's something that you can do. Whenever you hit a creature with a melee weapon attack, you may have it make a DC 12 strength check. Not saving throw, not strength athletics check, ability check, just a DC 12 strength check. On a fail, you move it 5 feet to an unoccupied space directly away from you. So it's a fairly low DC. It's not something that you're going to be using a ton, but you can use it for a fairly decent amount of time. Because it's not a saving throw, and because it's not an ability check, or like a skill check, the enemy's not going to be getting a ton of use out of those, say, proficiency in athletics, or advantage on strength saving throws, or things like that. You just hit and knock them back. Now, I could just make it that when you hit a creature, it knocks them back. I think there's a mace that does that. Fell Oak. Yeah, Fell Oak in Diablo. It just knocks things back. And I think the item that I've made also does that in D&D. Go check it out in the items. But given that this is also a set item, it gets better with some other things. I don't know. I'm absolute crap at making items, so learning experience here. We'll see how well the balance works out. Speaking of weapon attacks, Cleglaw's Tooth is actually a really good early game item. 50% deadly strike means it has a 50% chance of dealing double damage, and a 30%, not plus 30, but a 30% bonus to attack rating means that you are definitely more likely to hit. And then it adds additional damage, maximum damage when you have more of the set. I kind of mushed the two things together. I knew I wanted to keep this an uncommon item because common items or common weapons aren't that common. So I tied it into its critical strike ability. Whenever you critically strike with this weapon, its damage die is treated as one step higher. For example, if wielded one-handed, its damage die becomes a D10. This is not good. This is really not good. This means that you get, on average, 1 additional damage. Oh, wait, no, excuse me. Let me rephrase that. 2 additional damage on a critical strike, because you are rolling your damage die twice, or you're doubling what's on the damage die, or whatever, depending on your critical hit house rules. So this could be something that I change. I could make it so that its damage dice is simply one step higher, so that one-handed it becomes a D10 and two-handed it becomes a D12. That is a possibility, but I don't know. But as of right now, this is what I have. And is it good? I don't know. Just let me know. Anyway, let's jump into the set bonuses. For the partial set completion, it's just a small amount of defense, nothing terrible. For the full set, you get a little bit more defense. You get Crushing Blow, which is a percentage-based damage. It deals a percentage-based amount of damage based on a couple different factors, but it is really, really good. Has some mana stolen per hit and some increased attack speed. So a very offensive focused set. This is where those set bonuses come into play very, very nicely. For 2+ items, once per day, you may gain advantage on a melee weapon attack roll. I think this is why I decided to keep the Cleglaw's Tooth where it is, because you have a better chance of critically striking, which means that you have a better chance of dealing more damage. It's only once per day. It's supposed to be a low-level set. But when you can get 3 items, when you get the full set, your weapon attacks score a critical hit on a roll of 19 or 20. And then Cleglaw's Tooth becomes very, very good, because now you are critically striking more often. You're going to be dealing just that little bit more damage, but you do have to have that full set. This is where, like I mentioned with the Cleglaw's Claw, this is where being immune to the poison condition is so big, because now you don't have disadvantage. If you ever could have gotten poisoned, now you don't have disadvantage on your melee weapon attacks, so you're more likely to critically strike. I think the individual items suffered so that the set bonuses could be pretty good. Let me know. Give me some feedback on that. And that is going to be it for the day. I was not terribly impressed with some of these items. I thought some of them could be better adapted, but I think by the end of recording here, I think I've grown into a lot more, to love them a lot more. But I would love to hear your feedback. Drop a comment or contact me on my social media. You can contact me at XenosFan2, that is XENOZFAN2 on Blue Sky and Reddit. And you can contact the channel directly at Diablo TODND on Blue Sky and YouTube. Thank you much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good whatever.